And Hananiah the prophet died the same year in the 7th new moon. Chapter 29. And these are the words of the letter which Jeremiah the prophet sent from Jerusalem to the rest of the elders of the exile, and to the priests, and to the prophets, and to all the people whom Nebuchadnezzar had exiled from Jerusalem to Babel. After Jeconiah the sovereign, and the sovereigness mother, and the eunuchs, and the heads of Yehuda and Jerusalem, and the craftsmen and the smiths had gone into exile from Jerusalem, by the hand of Elasah, son of Shaphan, and Jeremiah, the son of Hilkiah, whom Zedekiah, sovereign of Yehuda, sent to Babel, to Nebuchadnezzar, the sovereign of Babel, saying, Thus said Yahuwah of hosts, Elohim of Israel, to all the exiles whom I exiled from Jerusalem to Babel, build houses and dwell in them, plant gardens and eat their fruit. Take wives and bring forth sons and daughters, and take wives for your sons and give your daughters to husbands, and let them bear sons and daughters, and be increased there, and not diminished. And seek the peace of the city where I have exiled you, and pray to Yahuwah for it, for in its peace you have peace. For thus said Yahuwah of hosts, Elohim of Israel, let not your prophets and your diviners who are in your midst deceive you, neither listen to the dreams which you are dreaming. For they are prophesying falsely to you in my name. I have not sent them, declares Yahuwah. For thus said Yahuwah, when 70 years are completed at Babel, I shall visit you and establish my good word toward you, to bring you back to this place. I know the plans I am planning for you, declares Yahuwah, plans of peace and not of evil, to give you a future and an expectancy. Then you shall call on me, and shall come and pray to me, and I shall listen to you. And you shall seek me, and shall find me, when you search for me with all your heart. And I shall be found by you, declares Yahuwah. And I shall turn back your captivity, and gather you from all the nations, and from all the places where I have driven you, declares Yahuwah. And I shall bring you back to the place from which I have exiled you, because you have said, Yahuwah has raised up prophets for us in Babel. Thus said Yahuwah, concerning the sovereign who sits on the throne of David, concerning all the people who dwell in this city, and concerning your brothers who have not gone out with you into exile. Thus said Yahuwah of hosts, see, I am sending on them the sword, the scarcity of food, and the pestilence, and I shall make them like spoiled figs, so spoiled as to be uneatable. And I shall pursue them with the sword, with scarcity of food, and with pestilence. And I shall make them a horror among all the reigns of the earth, to be a curse, and an astonishment, and a hissing, and a reproach among all the nations where I have driven them. For they did not heed my words, declares Yahuwah, which I sent to them by my servants the prophets, rising up early and sending them. Yet you did not listen, declares Yahuwah. You therefore hear the word of Yahuwah, all you exiles, whom I have sent from Jerusalem to Babel. Thus said Yahuwah of hosts, the Elohim of Israel, concerning Ahab, son of Koelah, and Zedekiah, son of Maaseiah, who are prophesying falsely to you in my name. See, I am giving them into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, sovereign of Babel, and he shall strike them before your eyes. And because of them, all the exiles of Yehuda who are in Babel shall use a curse, saying, Yahuwah make you like Zedekiah and Ahab, whom the sovereign of Babel roasted in the fire, because they have done wickedness in Israel, and committed adultery with their neighbors' wives, and have spoken a word in my name falsely, which I have not commanded them. And I am he who knows, and a witness, declares Yahuwah. And speak to Shemiyahu, the Nehemalite, saying, Thus speaks Yahuwah of hosts, the Elohim of Israel, saying, Because you have sent letters in your name to all the people who are at Jerusalem, to Zephaniah, son of Maaseiah, the priest, and to all the priests, saying, Yahuwah has made you priests instead of Jehoiada, the priest, so that you are overseers in the house of Yahuwah, over everyone who is mad, and makes himself a prophet, that you should put him in the stocks and in the iron collar. So why have you not reproved Jeremiah of Anathoth? who makes himself a prophet to you. For he has sent to us in Babel, saying, This captivity is long. Build houses and dwell in them, and plant gardens and eat their fruit. And Zephaniah the priest read this letter in the hearing of Yirmiyahu the prophet. Then the word of Yahuwah came to Yirmiyahu, saying, Send to all those in exile, saying, Thus said Yahuwah concerning Shemaiah the Nehemalite, because Shemaiah has prophesied to you, and I have not sent him, and he has made you to trust on falsehood. Therefore, thus said Yahuwah, See, I am bringing punishment upon Shemaiah the Nehemalite and his seed. He shall have no one to dwell among this people, nor is he to see the good that I am about to do for my people, declares Yahuwah, because he has spoken apostasy against Yahuwah. Chapter 30. The word that came to Yirmiyahu from Yahuwah, saying, Thus spoke Yahuwah Elohim of Yisrael, saying, Write in a book for yourself all the words that I have spoken to you. For look, the days are coming, declares Yahuwah, when I shall turn back the captivity of my people Yisrael and Yehudah, declares Yahuwah. And I shall bring them back to the land that I gave to their fathers, and let them possess it. And these are the words Yahuwah spoke concerning Yisrael and Yehudah. For this is what Yahuwah said, We have heard a voice of trembling, of fear and not of peace. Ask now and see if a man is giving birth. Why do I see every man with his hands on his loins like a woman in labor, and all faces turned pale? Oh, for great is that day, there is none like it. And it is the time of Jacob's distress, but he shall be saved out of it. And it shall be in that day, declares Yahuwah of hosts, that I break his yoke from your neck, and tear off your bonds, and strangers no more enslave them. And they shall serve Yahuwah their Elohim, and David their sovereign, whom I raise up for them. And you, do not fear, O Jacob, my servant, declares Yahuwah, nor be discouraged, O Yisrael. For look, I am saving you from afar, and your seed from the land of their captivity. And Jacob shall return and have rest, and be at ease with no one to trouble him. For I am with you, declares Yahuwah, to save you. Though I make a complete end of all nations where I have scattered you, yet I do not make a complete end of you. But I shall reprove you in judgment, and by no means leave you unpunished. For thus said Yahuwah, Your breach is incurable, your wound is grievous. No one pleads your cause to bind up. There are no healing medicines for you. All those loving you have forgotten you. They do not seek you. For I struck you as an enemy strikes, with cruel chastisement, because your crookedness is great, your sins have increased. Why do you cry about your breach? Your pain is incurable because of your many crookednesses, because your sins have increased. I have done this to you. However, those who devour you shall be devoured, and all your adversaries, every one of them, shall go into captivity. And those who exploit you shall be exploited, and all who prey upon you I shall make a prey. For I restore health to you, and heal you of your wounds, declares Yahuwah. For they have called you an outcast, saying, This is Zion. No one is seeking her. Thus said Yahuwah, See, I turn back the captivity of Jacob's tents, and have compassion on his dwelling places. And the city shall be built upon its own mound, and the palace stand on its right place. And out of them shall arise thanksgiving and the voice of those who are laughing. And I shall increase them, and they shall not diminish. And I shall esteem them, and they shall not be small. And his children shall be as before, and his congregation shall be established before me. And I shall punish all who oppress them. And his prince shall be from him, and his ruler shall come from among him. And I shall bring him near, and he shall approach me. For who is this who pledged his heart to approach me, declares Yahuwah? And you shall be my people, and I shall be your Elohim. See, the storm of Yahuwah shall go forth in a rage, a whirling storm. It bursts upon the head of the wrong. The burning displeasure of Yahuwah shall not turn back until he has done and established the purpose of his heart. In the latter days you shall understand it. Chapter 31. At that time, declares Yahuwah, I shall be the Elohim of all the clans of Yisrael, and they shall be my people. Thus said Yahuwah, a people escaped from the sword found favor in the wilderness. Yisrael, when it went to find rest, Yahuwah appeared to me from afar, saying, I have loved you with an everlasting love. Therefore I shall draw you with loving commitment. I am going to build you again, and you shall be rebuilt, O maiden of Yisrael. Again you shall take up your tambourines and go forth in the dances of those who rejoice. Again you shall plant vines on the mountains of Shamaron. The planters shall plant and treat them as common. For there shall be a day when the watchmen cry out on Mount Ephraim, Arise, and let us go up to Zion, to Yahuwah our Elohim. For thus said Yahuwah, Sing with gladness for Jacob, and shout among the chief of the nations. Cry out, give praise, and say, O Yahuwah, save your people, the remnant of Yisrael. See, I am bringing them from the land of the north, and shall gather them from the ends of the earth, among them the blind and the lame, those with child and those in labor, together, a great assembly returning here. With weeping they shall come, and with their prayers I bring them. I shall make them walk by rivers of waters in a straight way in which they do not stumble. For I shall be a father to Yisrael, and Ephraim, he is my firstborn. Hear the word of Yahuwah, O nations, and declare it in the isles afar off, and say, He who scattered Yisrael gathers him, and shall guard him as a shepherd his flock. For Yahuwah shall ransom Jacob, and redeem him from the hand of one stronger than he. And they shall come in and shall sing on the height of Zion, and stream to the goodness of Yahuwah, for grain, and for new wine, and for oil, and for the young of the flock and the herd. And their being shall be like a well-watered garden, and never languish again. Then shall a maiden rejoice in a dance, and young men and old, all together. And I shall turn their mourning to joy, and shall comfort them, and shall make them rejoice from their sorrow, and shall fill the being of the priests with fatness, and my people shall be satisfied with my goodness, declares Yahuwah. Thus said Yahuwah, a voice was heard in Ramah, wailing, bitter weeping, Rachel weeping for her children, refusing to be comforted for her children, because they are no more. Thus said Yahuwah, hold back your voice from weeping, and your eyes from tears, for there is a reward for your work, declares Yahuwah. And they shall return from the land of the enemy, and there is expectancy for your latter end, declares Yahuwah, and your children shall return to their own country. I have clearly heard Ephraim lamenting. You have chastised me, and I was chastised like an untrained calf. Turn me back, and I shall turn back, for you are Yahuwah my Elohim. For after my turning back I repented, and after I was instructed I struck myself on the thigh. I was ashamed, even humiliated, for I bore the reproach of my youth. Is Ephraim a precious son to me, a child of delights? For though I spoke against him, I still remembered him. That is why my affections were deeply moved for him. I have great compassion for him, declares Yahuwah. Set up signposts, make landmarks, set your heart toward the highway, the way in which you went. Turn back, O maiden Yisrael, turn back to these cities of yours. Till when would you turn here and there, O backsliding daughter? For Yahuwah has created what is new on earth. A woman encompasses a man. Thus said Yahuwah of hosts, the Elohim of Yisrael. Let them once again say this word in the land of Yehudah and in its cities, when I turn back their captivity. Yahuwah bless you, O home of righteousness, mountain of set-apartness. And in Yehudah and all its cities, farmers and those who journey with flocks shall dwell together. For I shall fill the weary being, and I shall replenish every grieved being. At this I awoke and looked around, and my sleep was sweet to me. See, the days are coming, declares Yahuwah, that I shall sow the house of Yisrael and the house of Yehudah with the seed of man and the seed of beast. And it shall be that as I have watched over them to pluck up and to break down and to throw down and to destroy and to afflict, so I shall watch over them to build and to plant, declares Yahuwah. In those days they shall no longer say, the fathers ate sour grapes and the children's teeth are blunted. But each one shall die for his own crookedness. Whoever eats sour grapes, his teeth shall be blunted. See, the days are coming, declares Yahuwah, when I shall make a renewed covenant with the house of Yisrael and with the house of Yehudah, not like the covenant which I made with their fathers in the day when I strengthened their hand to bring them out of the land of Mitzrayim, my covenant which they broke, though I was a husband to them, declares Yahuwah. For this is the covenant I shall make with the house of Israel. After those days, declares Yahuwah, I shall put my Torah in their inward parts and write it on their hearts, and I shall be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. And no longer shall they teach each one his neighbor and each one his brother, saying, Know Yahuwah, for they shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest of them, declares Yahuwah. For I shall forgive their crookednesses and remember their sin no more. Thus said Yahuwah, who gives the sun for a light by day, and the laws of the moon and the stars for a light by night, who stirs up the sea, and its waves roar. Yahuwah of hosts is his name. If these laws vanish from before me, declares Yahuwah, then the seed of Yisrael shall also cease from being a nation before me forever. Thus said Yahuwah, if the heavens above could be measured, and the foundations of the earth searched out beneath, I would also cast off all the seed of Yisrael, for all that they have done, declares Yahuwah. See, the days are coming, declares Yahuwah, that the city shall be built for Yahuwah, from the tower of Hananel to the corner gate. And the measuring line shall again extend straight ahead to the hill Gareb. Then it shall turn toward Goah, and all the valley of the dead bodies and of the ashes and of all the fields as far as the Wadi Kidron, to the corner of the house gate toward the east, is to be set apart to Yahuwah. It shall not be plucked up or thrown down any more forever. Chapter 32. The word that came to Yirmiyahu from Yahuwah in the 10th year of Zedekiah, sovereign of Yehudah, which was the 18th year of Nebuchadnezzar. Now at that time the army of the sovereign of Babel besieged Jerusalem, and Yirmiyahu the prophet was shut up in the court of the guard, which was in the house of the sovereign of Yehudah. For Zedekiah, sovereign of Yehudah, had shut him up, saying, Why are you prophesying, saying, Thus said Yahuwah, See, I am giving the city into the hand of the sovereign of Babel, and he shall take it. And Zedekiah, sovereign of Yahuwah, shall not escape from the hand of the Kasdim, but certainly be given into the hand of the sovereign of Babel, and shall speak with him face to face, and see him eye to eye. And he shall lead Zedekiah to Babel, and be there until I visit him, declares Yahuwah. Though you fight with the Kasdim, you shall not prosper. And Yirmiyahu said, The word of Yahuwah came to me, saying, See, Hananel, son of Shallum, your uncle, is coming to you, saying, Buy my field which is in Anathoth, for the right of redemption is yours to buy it. So Hananel, my uncle's son, came to me in the court of the guard, according to the word of Yahuwah, and said to me, Please buy my field that is in Anathoth, which is in the land of Benjamin, for the right of inheritance is yours, and the redemption, buy it for yourself. And I knew that this was the word of Yahuwah. And I bought the field which was at Anathoth from Hananel, my uncle's son, and weighed out to him the silver, 17 shekels of silver. And I signed the deed and sealed it, and took witnesses and weighed the silver in the scales. Then I took the deed of purchase, that which was sealed according to the command and law, and that which was open. And I gave the deed of purchase to Baruch, son of Neriah, son of Maaseiah, in the presence of Hananel, my uncle's son, and in the presence of the witnesses who signed the deed of purchase, before all the Yahudim who sat in the court of the guard. And I commanded Baruch before their eyes, saying, Thus said Yahuwah of hosts, the Elohim of Yisrael, Take these deeds, both this deed of purchase, which is sealed, and this deed which is open, and put them in an earthen vessel, so that they remain many days. For thus said Yahuwah of hosts, the Elohim of Yisrael, houses and fields and vineyards shall again be bought in this land. And after I had given the deed of purchase to Baruch son of Neriah, I prayed to Yahuwah, saying, Ah, Master Yahuwah, see, you have made the heavens and the earth by your great power and outstretched arm. There is no matter too hard for you, who show loving commitment to thousands, and repay the crookedness of the fathers into the bosom of their children after them. The great, the mighty El, Yahuwah of hosts is his name, great in counsel and mighty in work. For your eyes are open to all the ways of the sons of men, to give everyone according to his ways, and according to the fruit of his deeds. For you have set signs and wonders in the land of Mitzrayim to this day, and in Israel and among other men, and you have made yourself a name as it is this day. And you have brought your people Yisrael out of the land of Mitzrayim, with signs and wonders, with a strong hand and outstretched arm, and with great fearsome deeds. And you gave them this land, of which you swore to their fathers to give them, a land flowing with milk and honey. And they came in and possessed it, but they did not obey your voice, nor did they walk in your Torah. They did not do all that you commanded them to do, so you brought all this evil upon them. See, the siege mounts. They have come to the city to take it, and the city has been given into the hand of the Kasdim, who fight against it, because of the sword and the scarcity of food and the pestilence. And what you have spoken has come about, and look, you see it. Yet you, O Master Yahuwah, have said to me, Buy the field for silver and take witnesses, although the city has been given into the hand of the Kasdim. Then the word of Yahuwah came to Yirmiyahu, saying, See, I am Yahuwah, the Elohim of all flesh. Is there any matter too hard for me? Therefore thus said Yahuwah, See, I am giving this city into the hand of the Kasdim, into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, sovereign of Babel, and he shall take it. And the Kasdim who fight against this city shall come and set fire to this city, and burn it, with the houses on whose roofs they burned incense to Baal, and poured out drink offerings to other mighty ones to provoke me. For the children of Israel and the children of Yehudah have done only evil before me from their youth. For the children of Israel have only provoked me with the work of their hands, declares Yahuwah. For this city has been a cause for my displeasure and my wrath from the day that they built it, even to this day that I should remove it from before my face, because of all the evil of the children of Israel and the children of Yehudah which they have done to provoke me. They, their sovereigns, their heads, their priests, their prophets, and the men of Yehudah, and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and they have turned their back to me, and not their face. Though I taught them, rising up early and teaching them, they did not listen to receive instruction, and they set their abominations in the house which is called by my name, to defile it. And they built the high places of Baal, which are in the valley of the son of Hinnom, to offer up their sons and their daughters to Moloch, which I did not command them, nor did it come into my heart, that they should do this abomination, to make Yehudah sin. And now, thus said Yahuwah, the Elohim of Yisrael, concerning this city of which you say, It shall be given into the hand of the sovereign of Babel, by the sword, and by scarcity of food, and by pestilence. See, I am gathering them out of all the lands where I have driven them in my displeasure, and in my wrath, and in my great rage. And I shall bring them back to this place, and shall let them dwell in safety, and they shall be my people, and I shall be their Elohim. And I shall give them one heart, and one way to fear me all the days, for the good of them and their children after them. And I shall make an everlasting covenant with them, that I do not turn back from doing good to them. And I shall put my fear in their hearts, so as not to turn aside from me. And I shall rejoice over them to do good to them, and shall plant them in this land in truth, with all my heart and with all my being. For thus said Yahuwah, as I have brought all this great evil on this people, so I am bringing on them all the good that I am speaking to them. And fields shall be bought in this land of which you are saying, it is a waste land without man or beast. It has been given into the hands of the Kasdim. Fields shall be bought for silver, and deeds signed and sealed, and witnesses be called in the land of Benjamin, and in the places around Jerusalem, and in the cities of Yehudah, and in the cities of the mountains, and in the cities of the low country, and in the cities of the south. For I shall turn back their captivity, declares Yahuwah. Chapter 33. And the word of Yahuwah came to Yirmiyahu a second time, while he was still shut up in the court of the guard, saying, Thus said Yahuwah, who made it, Yahuwah who formed it to establish it. Yahuwah is his name. Call unto me, and I shall answer you, and show you great and inaccessible matters which you have not known. For thus said Yahuwah, the Elohim of Yisrael, concerning the houses of this city, and the houses of the sovereigns of Yehudah, which are thrown down against the siege mounds and the sword, while coming to fight with the Kasdim, and to fill their places with the corpses of men whom I shall strike in my displeasure and my wrath, all for whose evil I have hidden my face from this city. See, I am bringing to it relief and healing, and I shall heal them and reveal to them the riches of peace and truth. And I shall turn back the captivity of Yehudah and the captivity of Israel, and shall build them as at the first, and shall cleanse them from all their crookedness, that they have sinned against me. And I shall pardon all their crookednesses that they have sinned, and by which they have transgressed against me. And it shall be to me a name of joy, a praise, and a pride before all nations of the earth, who hear all the good I am doing to them. And they shall fear and tremble for all the goodness and for all the peace I am doing to it. Thus said Yahuwah, in this place of which you say, it is dried up, without man and without beast, in the cities of Yehudah, in the streets of Jerusalem that are deserted, without man and without inhabitant, and without beast, there shall once again be heard the voice of joy and the voice of gladness, the voice of the bridegroom and the voice of the bride, the voice of those who are saying, Praise Yahuwah of hosts, for Yahuwah is good, for his loving commitment is forever. Of those who are bringing the offering of praise into the house of Yahuwah, for I shall turn back the captivity of the land as at the first, declares Yahuwah. Thus said Yahuwah of hosts, in this place, which is dried up, without man and without beast, and in all its cities there shall once again be a home of shepherds, causing their flocks to lie down. In the cities of the mountains, in the cities of the low countries, and in the cities of the south, and in the land of Benjamin, and in the places around Jerusalem, and in the cities of Yehudah, the flocks once again pass under the hands of him who counts them, declares Yahuwah. See, the days are coming, declares Yahuwah, when I shall establish the good word which I have promised to the house of Yisrael and to the house of Yehudah. In those days and at that time, I cause a branch of righteousness to spring forth for David, and he shall do right ruling and righteousness in the earth. In those days Yehudah shall be saved, and Jerusalem dwell in safety. And this is that which shall be proclaimed to her, Yahuwah our righteousness. For thus said Yahuwah, for David there is not to cease a man to sit on the throne of the house of Yisrael. And for the priests, the Levites, there is not to cease a man to offer ascending offerings before me, to kindle grain offerings, and to slaughter continually. And the word of Yahuwah came to Yirmiyahu, saying, Thus said Yahuwah, if you could break my covenant with the day, and my covenant with the night, so that there be not day and night in their season, then my covenant could also be broken with David my servant, so that he shall not have a son to reign upon his throne, and with the Levites, the priests, my attendants, as the host of the heavens is not counted, nor the sand of the sea measured. So I increase the descendants of David my servant, and the Levites who attend upon me. And the word of Yahuwah came to Yirmiyahu, saying, Have you not observed what these people have spoken, saying, The two clans which Yahuwah has chosen have been rejected by him. So they have despised my people, no more to be a nation before them. Thus said Yahuwah, If my covenant is not with day and night, and if I have not appointed the laws of the heavens and earth, then I would also reject the descendants of Jacob and David my servant, so that I should not take of his descendants to be rulers over the descendants of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Jacob. For I shall turn back their captivity and have compassion on them. Chapter 34. The word which came to Yirmiyahu from Yahuwah, when Nebuchadnezzar, sovereign of Babel, and all his army and all the reigns of the earth under his rule, and all the people fought against Jerusalem and all its cities, saying, Thus said Yahuwah, the Elohim of Israel, Go and speak to Zedekiah, sovereign of Yehuda, and say to him, Thus said Yahuwah, See, I am giving this city into the hand of the sovereign of Babel, and he shall burn it with fire. And you shall not escape out of his hand, but certainly be taken and given into his hand. And your eyes shall see the eyes of the sovereign of Babel, and his mouth shall speak with your mouth, and you shall go to Babel. But hear the word of Yahuwah, O Zedekiah, sovereign of Yehuda. Thus said Yahuwah concerning you, You shall not die by the sword. In peace you are to die. And as in the burning of spices for your fathers, the former sovereigns who were before you, so they shall burn spices for you and lament for you, saying, Alas, master! For I have spoken the word, declares Yahuwah. And Yirmiyahu the prophet spoke all these words to Zedekiah, the sovereign of Yehuda, in Jerusalem, while the sovereign of Babel's army was fighting against Jerusalem, and all the cities of Yehuda that were left, against Lachish and Azekah. For only these walled cities remained of the cities of Yehuda. The word which came to Yirmiyahu from Yahuwah, after sovereign Zedekiah had made a covenant with all the people who were at Jerusalem, to proclaim release to them, that everyone was to set free his male and female slave, the Hebrew man and the Hebrew woman. No one was to keep a Yahudi, his brother, enslaved. And when all the heads and all the people who had come into the covenant heard that each one was to set free his male and female slaves, and not keep them enslaved any longer, they obeyed and released them. But afterward they changed their minds and made the male and female slaves return, whom they had set free, and brought them into subjection as male and female slaves. Therefore the word of Yahuwah came to Yirmiyahu from Yahuwah, saying, Thus said Yahuwah, the Elohim of Israel, I myself made a covenant with your fathers in the day that I brought them out of the land of Mitzrayim, out of the house of bondage, saying, At the end of 7 years, each one should set free his Hebrew brother, who has been sold to him. And when he has served you 6 years, you shall let him go free from you. But your fathers did not obey me, nor incline their ear. And you recently turned and did what was right in my eyes, each man proclaiming release to his neighbor. And you made a covenant before me in the house which is called by my name. But you turned back and profaned my name. And each one of you took back his male and female slaves, whom he had set free at their pleasure, and brought them into subjection to be your male and female slaves. Therefore thus said Yahuwah, You have not obeyed me in proclaiming release, each one to his brother and each one to his neighbor. See, I am proclaiming release to you, declares Yahuwah, to the sword, to the pestilence, and to the scarcity of food, and I shall make you a horror to all the reigns of the earth. And I shall give the men who are transgressing my covenant, who have not established the words of the covenant which they made before me, when they cut the calf in two, and passed between the parts of it, the heads of Yehuda, and the heads of Jerusalem, the eunuchs, and the priests, and all the people of the land who passed between the parts of the calf. And I shall give them into the hand of their enemies, and into the hand of those who seek their life, and their corpses shall be for food to the birds of the heavens and the beasts of the earth. And I shall give Zedekiah, sovereign of Yehuda, and his heads into the hand of their enemies, and into the hand of those who seek their life, and into the hand of the sovereign of Babel's army that has withdrawn from you. See, I am commanding, declares Yahuwah, and shall bring them back to this city, and they shall fight against it, and take it, and burn it with fire. And I shall make the cities of Yehuda a ruin without inhabitant. Chapter 35. The word which came to Yirmiyahu from Yahuwah in the days of Jehoiakim, son of Yoshiyahu, sovereign of Yehuda, saying, Go to the house of the Rechabites, and you shall speak to them, and bring them into the house of Yahuwah, into one of the rooms, and give them wine to drink. And I took Yozaniah, son of Yirmiyahu, the son of Habatziniah, and his brothers, and all his sons, and all the house of the Rechabites, and brought them into the house of Yahuwah, into the room of the sons of Hanan, son of Yigdayahu, a man of Elohim, which was by the chamber of the heads, above the room of Masayahu, son of Shallum, the keeper of the door. And I set before the sons of the house of the Rechabites bowls filled with wine and cups, and I said to them, Drink wine. But they said, We do not drink wine, because Jonadab, the son of Rechab, our father, commanded us, saying, You shall not drink wine, neither you nor your sons forever. And do not build a house, neither sow seed, nor plant a vineyard, nor have any of these, but dwell in tents all your days, so that you live many days on the face of the land where you are sojourners. So we obeyed the voice of Jonadab, son of Rechab, our father, in that he commanded us to drink no wine all our days, we, our wives, our sons, and our daughters, nor to build ourselves houses to dwell in. And we have no vineyard, field, or seed, but we dwell in tents, and have obeyed and done according to all that Jonadab our father commanded us. And it came to be, when Nebuchadnezzar, sovereign of Babel, came up into the land, that we said, Come, let us go to Jerusalem for fear of the army of the Kasdim, and for fear of the army of the Armenians. So we dwell at Jerusalem. And the word of Yahuwah came to Yirmiyahu, saying, Thus said Yahuwah of hosts, the Elohim of Yisrael, Go, and you shall say to the men of Yehuda, and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, Have you not received instruction to obey my words, declares Yahuwah? The words of Jonadab, son of Rechab, which he commanded his sons, not to drink wine, are established, and they have not drunk unto this day, for they have obeyed their father's command. And as for me, I have spoken to you, rising early and speaking, but you have not obeyed me. And I sent to you all my servants the prophets, rising up early and sending them, saying, Turn, each one from his evil way, and make good your deeds, and do not go after other mighty ones to serve them, and you shall dwell in the land which I have given you and your fathers. But you have not inclined your ear, nor obeyed me. The sons of Jonadab, son of Rechab, have indeed carried out the command of their father which he commanded them. But this people has not obeyed me. Therefore thus said Yahuwah, Elohim of hosts, the Elohim of Yisrael, See, I am bringing on Yehuda and on all the inhabitants of Jerusalem all the evil which I have pronounced against them, because I have spoken to them, but they did not listen, and I have called to them, but they did not answer. And Yirmiyahu said to the house of the Rechabites, Thus said Yahuwah of hosts, the Elohim of Yisrael, Because you have obeyed the command of Jonadab, your father, and guarded all his commands and done according to all that he commanded you. Therefore thus said Yahuwah of hosts, the Elohim of Yisrael, of Jonadab, son of Rechab, There shall never cease to be a man to stand before me. Chapter 36. And it came to be in the 4th year of Jehoiakim, son of Yoshiyahu, sovereign of Yehuda, that this word came to Yirmiyahu from Yahuwah, saying, Take a scroll, and write on it all the words that I have spoken to you, from the days of Yoshiyahu even to this day. It could be that the house of Yehuda hears all the evil which I plan to bring upon them, so that each one turns back from his evil way, and I shall pardon their crookedness and their sin. And Yirmiyahu called Baruch, son of Neriah, and Baruch wrote on a scroll from the mouth of Yirmiyahu all the words of Yahuwah which he had spoken to him. And Yirmiyahu commanded Baruch, saying, I am shut up. I am unable to enter the house of Yahuwah, but you shall enter, and shall read from the scroll which you have written from my mouth the words of Yahuwah in the hearing of the people in the house of Yahuwah on the day of fasting, and also read them in the hearing of all of Yehuda who come from their cities. It could be that they present their supplications before Yahuwah, and they turn back, each one from his evil way, for great is the displeasure and the wrath that Yahuwah has spoken against this people. And Baruch, son of Neriah, did according to all that Yirmiyahu the prophet commanded him, reading from the book the words of Yahuwah in the house of Yahuwah. And it came to be in the 5th year of Jehoiakim, son of Yoshiyahu, sovereign of Yehuda, in the 9th new moon, that they called a fast before Yahuwah to all the people in Jerusalem, and to all the people who came from the cities of Yehuda to Jerusalem. And Baruch read from the book of the words of Yirmiyahu in the house of Yahuwah, in the room of Jeremiyahu, son of Shaphan, the scribe, in the upper courtyard at the entry of the new gate of the house of Yahuwah, in the hearing of all the people. And Mikiyehu, son of Jeremiyahu, son of Shaphan, heard all the words of Yahuwah from the book. And then he went down to the sovereign's house, into the scribe's room. And there all the heads were sitting, Elishama, the scribe, and Deliyahu, son of Shemiyahu, and Elnathan, son of Achbor, and Jeremiyahu, son of Shaphan, and Zedekiyahu, son of Chenayahu, and all the heads. And Mikiyehu told them all the words which he heard when Baruch read the book in the hearing of all the people. Then all the heads sent Yehudi, son of Nethanyahu, son of Shelemiyahu, son of Cushai, to Baruch, saying, Take in your hand the scroll from which you have read in the hearing of the people, and come. So Baruch, son of Neriyahu, took the scroll in his hand and came to them. And they said to him, Sit down, please, and read it in our hearing. And it came to be, when they had heard all the words, that they looked at each other in fear, and said to Baruch, We are certainly going to report all these words to the sovereign. And they asked Baruch, saying, Please explain to us, how did you write all these words? From his mouth? And Baruch answered them, From his mouth he spoke all these words to me, and I wrote them with ink in the book. Then the head said to Baruch, Go, hide, you and Yirmiyahu, and let no one know where you are. And they went to the sovereign into the court, but they put the scroll in the room of Elishama the scribe, and told all the words in the hearing of the sovereign. The sovereign therefore sent Yehudi to bring the scroll, and he took it from the room of Elishama the scribe. And Yehudi read it in the hearing of the sovereign, and in the hearing of all the heads standing beside the sovereign. And the sovereign was sitting in the winter house in the 9th new moon, with a fire burning on the hearth before him. Then it came to be, when Yehudi had read 3 or 4 columns, that the sovereign cut it with the scribe's knife, and threw it into the fire that was on the hearth, until the entire scroll was burned in the fire that was on the hearth. Yet the sovereign and all his servants who heard all these words were not afraid, nor did they tear their garments. Moreover, Elnathan and Deliyahu and Jeremiyahu pleaded with the sovereign not to burn the scroll, but he did not listen to them. And the sovereign commanded Yeremiel, son of the sovereign, and Sariyahu, son of Azrael, and Shelemiyahu, son of Abdiel, to seize Baruch the scribe and Yirmiyahu the prophet. But Yahuwah had hid them. And after the sovereign had burned the scroll with the words which Baruch had written from the mouth of Yirmiyahu, the word of Yahuwah came to Yirmiyahu, saying, Take another scroll, and write on it all the former words that were in the first scroll, which Jehoiakim the sovereign of Yehuda has burned. And say to Jehoiakim sovereign of Yehuda, Thus said Yahuwah, You have burned this scroll, saying, Why have you written in it that the sovereign of Babel is certainly coming to destroy this land, and cause man and beast to cease from here? Therefore thus said Yahuwah concerning Jehoiakim, sovereign of Yehudah, he shall have no one to sit on the throne of David, and his dead body is to be thrown out to the heat of the day and the frost of the night. And I shall punish him and his seed and his servants for their crookedness, and I shall bring on them and on the inhabitants of Jerusalem and on the men of Yehudah all the evil that I have spoken against them. But they did not listen. So Jeremiah took another scroll and gave it to Baruch the scribe, son of Neriah, who wrote on it from the mouth of Jeremiah all the words of the book which Jehoiakim, sovereign of Yehudah, had burned in the fire, and many similar words were added to them. Chapter 37. And sovereign Zedekiah, son of Yoshiah, reigned instead of Coniah, son of Jehoiakim, whom Nebuchadnezzar, sovereign of Babel, set up to reign in the land of Yehudah. But neither he nor his servants, nor the people of the land had listened to the words of Yahuwah, which he spoke by the prophet Jeremiah. And Zedekiah the sovereign sent Yahukal, son of Shelemiah, and the priest, Zephaniah, son of Messiah, to the prophet Jeremiah, saying, Please pray to Yahuwah our Elohim for us. Now Jeremiah was still coming and going among the people, for they had not yet put him in prison. Meanwhile, Pharaoh's army had set out from Mitzrayim, and when the Kasdim who were besieging Jerusalem heard news of them, they withdrew from Jerusalem. And the word of Yahuwah came to Jeremiah the prophet, saying, Thus said Yahuwah, the Elohim of Yisrael, Say this to the sovereign of Yehudah, who sent you to me to inquire of me. See, Pharaoh's army, which has come to help you, shall turn back to Mitzrayim, to their own land. And the Kasdim shall return and fight against this city, and take it, and burn it with fire. Thus said Yahuwah, Do not deceive yourself, saying, The Kasdim shall go away from us. For they do not go. For though you had stricken the entire army of the Kasdim who are fighting against you, and there remained only wounded men among them, they would get up, each man in his tent, and burn the city with fire. And it came to be when the army of the Kasdim left the siege of Jerusalem, for fear of Pharaoh's army, that Jeremiah went out of Jerusalem to go into the land of Benjamin, to receive his portion there in the midst of the people. And it came to be as he was in the gate of Benjamin, a master of the guard was there, whose name was Uriah, son of Shelemiah, son of Hananiah. And he seized Jeremiah the prophet, saying, You are deserting to the Kasdim. But Jeremiah said, It is a lie. I'm not deserting to the Kasdim. But he did not listen to him. And Uriah seized Jeremiah and brought him to the heads. And the heads were wroth with Jeremiah and struck him and put him in prison in the house of Jonathan the scribe, for they had made that for a prison. When Jeremiah had entered into the dungeon and into the cells, then Jeremiah remained there many days. And Zedekiah the sovereign sent and took him out. And the sovereign asked him secretly in his house and said, Is there any word from Yahuwah? And Jeremiah said, There is. And he said, You are given into the hand of the sovereign of Babel. And Jeremiah said to Zedekiah the sovereign, What have I sinned against you and against your servants and against this people that you have put me into prison? Where are your prophets who prophesied to you, saying, The sovereign of Babel is not coming against you or against this land? But now, please hear, O my master the sovereign, please let my petition be accepted before you, and do not make me return to the house of Jonathan the scribe, lest I die there. Zedekiah the sovereign then commanded Jeremiah to be placed in the court of the guard, and that they should give him daily a piece of bread from the baker's street, until all the bread of the city was gone. So Jeremiah remained in the court of the guard. Chapter 38. And Shephatiah, son of Matan, and Gedaliah, son of Pashur, and Ukal, son of Shelemiah, and Pashur, son of Melchiah, heard the words which Jeremiah had spoken to all the people, saying, Thus said Yahuwah, He who remains in this city shall die by the sword, by scarcity of food, and by pestilence. But whoever goes over to the Kasdim shall live, and his life shall be as a prize to him, and he shall live. Thus said Yahuwah, this city is certainly given into the hand of the sovereign of Babel's army, and he shall take it. Then the head said to the sovereign, Please let this man be put to death, because he's weakening the hands of the men of battle who are left in the city, and the hands of all the people by speaking such words to them. For this man does not seek the peace of this people, but the evil. And Zedekiah the sovereign said, Look, he is in your hand, for the sovereign is unable to do any matter against you. And they took Yirmiyahu and threw him into the dungeon of Malchiyahu, the sovereign's son, which was in the court of the guard. And they let Yirmiyahu down with ropes. And in the dungeon there was no water but mud. So Yirmiyahu sank in the mud. And Ebed-Melech the Cushite, one of the eunuchs who was in the sovereign's house, heard that they had put Yirmiyahu in the dungeon. And the sovereign was sitting at the gate of Benjamin. And Ebed-Melech came from the sovereign's house and spoke to the sovereign, saying, My master the sovereign, these men have done evil in all that they have done to Yirmiyahu the prophet, whom they've thrown into the dungeon, and he is likely to die from hunger in the place where he is, for there is no more bread in the city. And the sovereign commanded Ebed-Melech the Cushite, saying, Take 30 men from here with you, and lift Yirmiyahu the prophet out of the dungeon before he dies. So Ebed-Melech took the men with him, and went into the house of the sovereign under the treasury, and took old clothes and old rags from there, and let them down by ropes into the dungeon to Yirmiyahu. And Ebed-Melech the Cushite said to Yirmiyahu, Please put these old clothes and rags under your armpits, under the ropes. And Yirmiyahu did so. And they pulled Yirmiyahu up with ropes and lifted him out of the dungeon. And Yirmiyahu remained in the court of the guard. Then Zedekiah the sovereign sent and had Yirmiyahu the prophet brought to him at the third entrance of the house of Yahuwah. And the sovereign said to Yirmiyahu, I am asking you a matter. Do not hide a matter from me. And Yirmiyahu said to Zedekiah, If I declare it to you, shall you not put me to death? And if I give you advice, you shall not listen to me. But Zedekiah the sovereign swore secretly to Yirmiyahu, saying, As Yahuwah lives, who made us this life, I do not put you to death, nor do I give you into the hand of these men who seek your life. And Yirmiyahu said to Zedekiah, Thus said Yahuwah, the Elohim of hosts, the Elohim of Yisrael, if you do indeed surrender to the heads of the sovereign of Babel, then your being shall live, and this city not be burned with fire, and you and your house shall live. But if you do not surrender to the heads of the sovereign of Babel, then this city shall be given into the hand of the Kasdim, and they shall burn it with fire, and you shall not escape from their hand. Then Zedekiah the sovereign said to Yirmiyahu, I am afraid of the Yahudim who have gone over to the Kasdim, lest they give me into their hand, and they maltreat me. But Yirmiyahu said, They shall not hand you over. Please obey the voice of Yahuwah which I speak to you, and let it be well with you, and your life be spared. But if you refuse to surrender, this is the word that Yahuwah has shown me. Then see, all the women who are left in the sovereign of Yehudah's house shall be surrendered to the heads of the sovereign of Babel. And see, they are saying, Your close friends have set upon you and prevailed against you. Your feet have sunk in the mire. They have turned away again. And they are going to surrender all your wives and children to the Kasdim. And you yourself shall not escape their hand, but be taken by the hand of the sovereign of Babel, and this city shall be burned with fire. Then Zedekiah said to Yirmiyahu, Let no one know of these words, and you shall not die. But if the heads hear that I have spoken with you, and they come to you and say to you, Declare to us now what you have said to the sovereign, and also what the sovereign said to you. Do not hide it from us, and we do not put you to death. Then you shall say to them, I presented my petition before the sovereign, not to send me back to the house of Jonathan to die there. And all the heads came to Yirmiyahu and asked him, and he informed him according to all these words that the sovereign had commanded. And they said no more to him, for the matter was not heard. So Yirmiyahu remained in the court of the guard until the day that Jerusalem was taken. and he was there when Jerusalem was taken. Chapter 39. In the 9th year of Zedekiah, sovereign of Yehuda, in the 10th new moon, Nebuchadnezzar, sovereign of Babel, and all his army came against Jerusalem and besieged it. In the 11th year of Zedekiah, in the 4th new moon, on the 9th day of the new moon, the city was broken into, and all the heads of the sovereign of Babel came in and sat in the middle gate. Nergal, Shar, Chatzor, Samgar, Nebo, Sarsakim, Rabsaris, Nergal, Saretzer, Rabmag, and all the rest of the heads of the sovereigns of Babel. And it came to be when Zedekiah, the sovereign of Yehuda, and all the men of the battle saw them, they fled, and left the city by night by the way of the sovereign's garden, by the gate between the two walls. And he went out toward the desert plain. But the army of the Kasdim pursued them, and overtook Zedekiah in the desert plains of Jericho. And they captured him, and brought him up to Nebuchadnezzar, sovereign of Babel, to Riblah, in the land of Hamath, where he spoke judgment on him. And the sovereign of Babel slew the sons of Zedekiah before his eyes in Riblah. The sovereign of Babel also slew all the nobles of Yehuda, and he put out the eyes of Zedekiah, and bound him with bronze shackles to bring him to Babel. And the Kasdim burned the house of the sovereign and the house of the people with fire, and they broke down the walls of Jerusalem. And Nebuzaradan, chief of the guard, exiled to Babel the remnant of the people who remained in the city, and those who defected to him, with the rest of the people who were left. And Nebuzaradan, chief of the guard, left in the land of Yehuda the poor people, who had not whatever, and gave them vineyards and fields on the same day. And Nebuchadnezzar, sovereign of Babel, gave a command concerning Yirmiyahu to Nebuzaradan, chief of the guard, saying, Take him, and look after him, and do no harm whatsoever to him, but do to him even as he shall speak to you. And Nebuzaradan, chief of the guard, and Nebuchadnezzar, the Rabsaras, Nergal-Sharetzer, the Rabmag, and all the sovereigns of Babel's chief officers sent, and had Yirmiyahu take him from the court of the guard, and gave him to Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, son of Shaphan, to take him home. And he dwelt among the people. And the word of Yahuwah had come to Yirmiyahu while he was shut up in the court of the guard, saying, Go, and you shall speak to Ebed-Melech the Cushite, saying, Thus said Yahuwah of hosts, the Elohim of Yisrael, See, I am bringing my words upon this city for evil and not for good, and they shall be before you in that day. And I shall deliver you in that day, declares Yahuwah, so that you are not given into the hand of the men of whom you are afraid. For I shall rescue you, and you shall not fall by the sword, but your life shall be as a prize to you, for you have put your trust in me, declares Yahuwah. Chapter 40. The word that came to Yirmiyahu from Yahuwah, after Nebuzaradan, chief of the guard, had let him go from Ramah, when he had taken him bound in chains among all the exiles from Jerusalem and Yehuda, who were being exiled to Babel. And the chief of the guard took Yirmiyahu and said to him, Yahuwah, your Elohim has spoken this evil on this place, and Yahuwah has brought it on and has done as he said, because you have sinned against Yahuwah and did not obey his voice. Therefore this matter has come upon you. And now, see, I loosen you today from the chains that were on your hand. If it seems good to you to come with me to Babel, come, and I shall look after you. But if it seems wrong for you to come with me to Babel, remain here. See, all the land is before you. Go wherever it seems good and right for you to go. And before he replied, Nebuzaradan said, Or go back to Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, son of Shaphan, whom the sovereign of Babel has made governor over the cities of Yehuda, and dwell with him among the people, or go wherever it seems right for you to go. And the chief of the guard gave him provisions and a gift, and let him go. So Yirmiyahu went to Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, to Mitzpah, and dwelt with him among the people who were left in the land. And all the commanders of the armies who were in the fields, they and their men heard that the sovereign of Babel had made Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, governor in the land, and had put him in charge of the men, and women and children, and the poor of the land who had not been exiled to Babel. So they came to Gedaliah at Mitzpah, Yishmael the son of Nethanyahu, and Yochanan, and Jonathan the sons of Kareah, and Sariah the son of Tanhumeth, and the sons of Ophi the Netophathite, and Yazinyahu the son of Makathite, they and their men. And Gedaliah son of Ahikam, son of Shaphan, swore to them and their men, saying, Do not be afraid of serving the Kasdim. Dwell in the land and serve the sovereign of Babel, and it shall be well with you. And I am dwelling at Mitzpah, to serve the Kasdim who come to us. But you gather wine and summer fruit and oil, and put them in your vessels, and dwell in your cities which you have taken. Also, when the Yahudim who were in Moab, and among the Ammonites, and in Edom, and who were in all the lands heard that the sovereign of Babel had left a remnant of Yehudah, and that he had set over them Gedaliah son of Ahikam, son of Shaphan, then all the Yahudim returned from all the places where they had been driven, and came to the land of Yehudah, to Gedaliah at Mitzpah, and gathered wine and summer fruit in large quantities. And Yochanan son of Kareah, and all the commanders of the army that were in the fields came to Gedaliah at Mitzpah. And they said to him, Do you certainly know that the Baali, sovereign of the Ammonites, has sent Yishmael, son of Nethaniah, to strike you, a being? But Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, would not believe them. Then Yochanan, son of Kareah, spoke secretly to Gedaliah in Mitzpah, saying, Please, let me go and strike Yishmael, son of Nethaniah, without anyone knowing it. Why should he murder you? And so let all the Yahudim who are gathered to you be scattered, and the remnant in Yehudah perish. But Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, said to Yochanan, son of Kareah, Do not do this matter, for what you are saying about Yishmael is not true. Chapter 41. And in the 7th new moon it came to be that Yishmael, son of Nethaniah, son of Elishama, of the royal seed and of the officers of the sovereign, came with 10 men to Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, at Mitzpah. And while they ate bread together there in Mitzpah, Yishmael, son of Nethaniah, and 10 men who were with him arose, and struck Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, son of Shaphan, with the sword, and killed him, whom the sovereign of Babel had made governor over the land. And Yishmael struck all the Yahudim who were with him, with Gedaliah at Mitzpah, and the Kasdim who were found there, the men of battle. And it came to be on the 2nd day after he had killed Gedaliah, when no one yet knew it, that men came from Shechem, from Shiloh, and from Shamaron, 80 men with their beards shaved and their garments torn, having cut themselves with offerings and incense in their hand, to bring them to the house of Yahuwah. And Yishmael, son of Nethaniah, went out from Mitzpah to meet them, weeping as he walked along. And it came to be as he met them, that he said to them, Come to Gedaliah, son of Ahikam. And it came to be, when they came inside the city, that Yishmael, son of Nethaniah, slew them, throwing them into a pit, he and the men who were with him. But 10 men were found among them, who said to Yishmael, Do not kill us, for we have wheat and barley and oil and honey hidden in the field. So he held back and did not kill them among their brothers. And the pit into which Yishmael had thrown all the corpses of the men whom he had struck, because of Gedaliah, was the same one Asa, the sovereign, had made for fear of Baasha, sovereign of Israel. Yishmael, son of Nethaniah, had filled it with the slain. Then Yishmael took captive all the rest of the people who were in Mitzpah, the sovereign's daughters and all the people who were left in Mitzpah, whom Nebuzaradan, chief of the guard, had entrusted to Gedaliah, son of Ahikam. And Yishmael, son of Nethaniah, took captive and went to go over to the Ammonites. But Yochanan, son of Kareah, and all the commanders of the army that were with him heard of all the evil that Yishmael, son of Nethaniah, had done. So they took all the men and went to fight with Yishmael, son of Nethaniah, and they found him by the great pool that is in Gibbon. And it came to be, when all the people who were with Yishmael saw Yochanan, son of Kareah, and all the commanders of the army who were with him, that they were glad. And all the people whom Ishmael had taken captive from Mitzpah turned around and came back and went to Yochanan, son of Kareah. But Ishmael, the son of Nethaniah, escaped from Yochanan with 8 men and went to the Ammonites. Then Yochanan, son of Kareah, and all the commanders of the army that were with him, took from Mitzpah all the rest of the people, whom he had recovered from Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, after he had struck Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, the mighty men of battle, and the women, and the children, and the eunuchs whom he had brought back from Gibbon. And they set out and dwelt in the lodging place of Kimham, which is near Bethlehem, to go to enter Mitzrayim, because of the Kasdim, for they were afraid of them, because Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, had struck Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, whom the sovereign of Babel had made governor in the land. Chapter 42. Then all the commanders of the army, and Yochanan, son of Kareah, and Yezaniah, son of Hoshea, and all the people from the least to the greatest came near, and said to Yirmiyahu the prophet, We beg you, let our petition be acceptable to you, and pray for us to Yahuwah your Elohim for all this remnant, for we are few left of many as your eyes see us. And let Yahuwah your Elohim show us the way in which we should walk, and the word which we should do. And Yirmiyahu the prophet said to them, I have heard. See, I am praying to Yahuwah your Elohim, according to your words. And it shall be that I declare to you all the word Yahuwah answers you. I withhold not a word from you. And they said to Yirmiyahu, Let Yahuwah be a true and steadfast witness between us, if we do not do according to all the word which Yahuwah your Elohim sends us by you, whether good or evil. Let us obey the voice of Yahuwah our Elohim, to whom we send you, in order that it might be well with us when we obey the voice of Yahuwah our Elohim. And after 10 days, it came to be that the word of Yahuwah came to Yirmiyahu. So he called Yochanan, son of Kareah, and all the commanders of the army which were with him, and all the people from the least even to the greatest, and said to them, Thus said Yahuwah, the Elohim of Yisrael, to whom you sent me to present your petition before him. If you would indeed stay in this land, then I shall build you and not pull you down, and I shall plant you and not pluck you up, for I have relented of the evil I have done to you. Do not be afraid of the sovereign of Babel, of whom you are afraid. Do not be afraid of him, declares Yahuwah, for I am with you, to save you and deliver you from his hand. And I shall show you compassion, so that he has compassion on you, and let you return to your own land. But if you say, We are not staying in this land, and so disobey the voice of Yahuwah your Elohim, saying, No, but we are going to the land of Mitzrayim, so that we see no fighting, nor hear a voice of the shofar, nor hunger for bread, and there we shall stay. Then hear the word of Yahuwah, O remnant of Yehudah. Thus said Yahuwah of hosts, the Elohim of Yisrael, If you indeed set your faces to enter Mitzrayim, and shall go to sojourn there, then it shall be that the sword which you feared overtakes you there in the land of Mitzrayim, and the scarcity of food which you were afraid clings to you there in Mitzrayim, and you die there. And so it shall be with all the men who set their faces to go to Mitzrayim to sojourn there. They shall die by the sword, by scarcity of food, and by pestilence, and not one of them shall survive or escape from the evil I am bringing upon them. For thus said Yahuwah of hosts, the Elohim of Yisrael, As my displeasure and my wrath have been poured out on all the inhabitants of Jerusalem, so shall my wrath be poured out on you when you enter Mitzrayim. And you shall be an oath, and an astonishment, and a curse, and a reproach, and you shall see this place no more. Yahuwah has spoken about you, O remnant of Yehudah. Do not go to Mitzrayim. Know for certain that I have warned you this day. For you deceived yourselves when you sent me to Yahuwah your Elohim, saying, Pray for us to Yahuwah our Elohim. And according to all that Yahuwah your Elohim says, so declare to us, and we shall do it. So I have declared it to you today, but you have not obeyed the voice of Yahuwah your Elohim in all which he has sent me to you. And now, Know for certain that you shall die by the sword, by scarcity of food, and by pestilence in the place where you have desired to go sojourn. Chapter 43. And it came to be when Yirmiyahu had ended speaking all these words to all the people, all the words of Yahuwah their Elohim, for which Yahuwah their Elohim had sent to them, that Azariah son of Hoshaiah, and Yochanan son of Kareah, and all the proud men spoke, saying to Yirmiyahu, You are speaking a lie. Yahuwah our Elohim has not sent you to say, Do not go to Mitzrayim to sojourn there, for Baruch son of Neriah is moving you against us, to give us into the hand of the Kasdim, to put us to death, or exile us to Babel. So Yochanan son of Kareah, and all the commanders of the army, and all the people disobeyed the voice of Yahuwah, to stay in the land of Yehudah. And Yochanan son of Kareah, and all the commanders of the army took all the remnant of Yehudah, who had returned to sojourn in the land of Yehudah, from all the nations where they'd been driven, the men and the women, and the children and the sovereign's daughters, and every being whom Nebuzaradan, chief of the guard, had left with Gedaliah son of Ahikam, son of Shaphan, and Yirmiyahu the prophet, and Baruch son of Neriah. So they went to the land of Mitzrayim, for they disobeyed the voice of Yahuwah, and they went as far as Tafpanes. And the word of Yahuwah came to Yirmiyahu in Tafpanes, saying, Take large stones in your hand, and you shall hide them before the eyes of the men of Yehudah, in the clay, in the brick courtyard which is at the entrance of Pharaoh's house in Tafpanes. Then you shall say to them, Thus said Yahuwah of hosts, the Elohim of Yisrael, See, I am sending, and I shall bring Nebuchadnezzar the sovereign of Babel, my servant, and I shall set his throne above these stones that I have hidden, and he shall spread his canopy over them, and he shall come and strike the land of Mitzrayim, bringing death to those appointed for death, and captivity to those for captivity, and the sword to those for the sword. And he shall set fire to the houses of the mighty ones of Mitzrayim, and he shall burn them and take them captive. And he shall cover himself with the land of Mitzrayim, as a shepherd puts on his garment. And he shall go out from there in peace. And he shall break the stone pillars of the house of the sun, which are in the land of Mitzrayim, and he shall burn the houses of the mighty ones of the Mitzrites with fire. Chapter 44. The word that came to Yirmiyahu concerning all the Yahudim who were dwelling in the land of Mitzrayim, who were dwelling at Migdal, and at Tafpanes, and at Noph, and in the land of Pathros, saying, Thus said Yahuwah of hosts, the Elohim of Yisrael, You yourselves have seen all the evil that I have brought on Jerusalem, and on all the cities of Yehudah, and see, this day they are a ruin, and no one dwells in them, because of their evil which they have done to provoke me, by going to burn incense, by serving other mighty ones whom they did not know, they nor you nor your fathers. And I sent to you all my servants the prophets, rising early and sending them, saying, Please do not do this abominable matter that I hate. But they did not listen or incline their ear to turn from their evil, not to burn incense to other mighty ones. So my wrath and my displeasure were poured out and burned in the cities of Yehudah, and in the streets of Jerusalem, and they became a ruin and a wasteland, as it is this day. And now thus said Yahuwah, the Elohim of hosts, the Elohim of Yisrael, Why are you doing this great evil against your lives, to cut off from you man and woman, child and infant from the midst of Yehudah, leaving none to remain, by provoking me with the works of your hands, by burning incense to other mighty ones in the land of Mitzrayim, where you have gone to sojourn, to cut yourselves off, and be a curse and a reproach among all the nations of the earth. Have you forgotten the evils of your fathers, and the evils of the sovereigns of Yehudah, and the evils of their wives, and your own evils, and the evils of your wives, which they have done in the land of Yehudah, and in the streets of Jerusalem? To this day they have not been humbled, nor have they feared, nor have they walked in my Torah, and in my laws that I set before you and your fathers. Therefore thus said Yahuwah of hosts, the Elohim of Yisrael, See, I am setting my face against you for evil and for cutting off all Yehudah. And I shall take the remnant of Yehuda, who have set their faces to go into the land of Mitzrayim, to sojourn there, and they shall all be consumed in the land of Mitzrayim, fall by the sword, consumed by scarcity of food. From the least to the greatest they shall die by the sword and by the scarcity of food. And they shall be an oath and an astonishment and a curse and a reproach. And I shall punish those dwelling in the land of Mitzrayim, as I have punished Jerusalem by the sword, by scarcity of food, and by pestilence. And none of the remnant of Yehuda, who have gone into the land of Mitzrayim to sojourn there, shall escape or survive, lest they return to the land of Yehuda, to which they are longing to return to dwell there. For they shall not return except those who escape. Then all the men who knew that their wives had burned incense to other mighty ones, and all the women who stood by, a great assembly, and all the people who dwelt in the land of Mitzrayim in Pathros answered Yirmiyahu, saying, We are not going to listen to you in the matter about which you spoke to us in the name of Yahuwah, but we shall do whatever has gone out of our own mouth, to burn incense to the sovereigness of the heavens, and pour out drink offerings to her as we have done. We and our fathers, our sovereigns and our heads in the cities of Yehuda and in the streets of Jerusalem. And we had plenty of food, and were well off, and saw no evil. But since we ceased burning incense to the sovereignness of the heavens, and pouring out drink offerings to her, we have lacked all, and have been consumed by the sword and by scarcity of food. And when we burned incense to the sovereignness of heavens, and poured out drink offerings to her, did we make cakes for her, to idolize her, and pour out drink offerings to her without our husbands? Then Yirmiyahu spoke to all the people, to the men and to the women, and to all the people who had given him that answer, saying, As for the incense that you have burned in the cities of Yehuda and in the streets of Jerusalem, you and your fathers, your sovereigns, and your heads, and the people of the land, did not Yahuwah remember them? And it came into his heart? And Yahuwah could no longer bear it because of the evil of your deeds, because of the abominations which you did. Therefore your land is a ruin, an object of astonishment, a curse, and without inhabitant, as it is this day, because you have burned incense, and because you have sinned against Yahuwah, and did not obey the voice of Yahuwah, or walk in his Torah, in his laws, or in his witnesses. Therefore this evil did befall you, as it is this day. And Yirmiyahu said to all the people, and to all the women, Hear the word of Yahuwah, all Yehuda, who are in the land of Mitzrayim. Thus spoke Yahuwah of hosts, the Elohim of Israel, saying, You and your wives have spoken with your mouths, and have filled with your hands, saying, We shall perform our vows that we have made, to burn incense to the sovereignness of the heavens, and pour out drink offerings to her. Then confirm your vows and perform your vows. Therefore hear the word of Yahuwah, all Yehuda, who are dwelling in the land of Mitzrayim. See, I have sworn by my great name, declares Yahuwah. My name shall no longer be called upon by the mouth of any man of Yehuda in all the land of Mitzrayim, saying, As the Master Yahuwah lives. See, I am watching over them for evil and not for good. And all the men of Yehuda who are in the land of Mitzrayim shall be consumed by the sword, and by scarcity of food until they come to an end. And those who escape the sword, few in number, shall return from the land of Mitzrayim to the land of Yehuda, and all the remnant of Yehuda, who came into the land of Mitzrayim to sojourn there, shall know whose word is established, mine or theirs. And this is the sign to you, declares Yahuwah, that I am punishing you in this place, so that you know my words are certainly established against you for evil. Thus said Yahuwah, See, I am giving Pharaoh Hophra, sovereign of Mitzrayim, into the hand of his enemies, and into the hand of those who seek his life, as I gave Zedekiah, sovereign of Yehuda, into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, sovereign of Babel, his enemy, who sought his life. Chapter 45. The word that Yirmiyahu the prophet spoke to Baruch, son of Neriah, when he had written these words in a book from the mouth of Yirmiyahu, in the 4th year of Jehoiakim, son of Yoshiyahu, sovereign of Yehuda, saying, Thus said Yahuwah, the Elohim of Israel, concerning you, Baruch. You have said, Woe to me now, for Yahuwah has added grief to my pain. I have been wearied with my sighing, and I have found no rest. Say this to him. Thus said Yahuwah, see what I have built I am breaking down, and what I have planted I am plucking up. That is the entire land. And do you seek great matters for yourself? Do not seek them, for look, I am bringing evil on all flesh, declares Yahuwah. But I shall give your life to you as a prize in all places wherever you go. Chapter 46. The word of Yahuwah which came to Yirmiyahu the prophet concerning the nations, for Mitzrayim, concerning the army of Pharaoh Necho, sovereign of Mitzrayim, which was by the river Euphrates in Carchemish, and which Nebuchadnezzar the sovereign of Babel had stricken in the 4th year of Jehoiakim, son of Yoshiyahu, sovereign of Yehuda. Prepare the large and the small shield, and draw near to battle. Harness the horses, and mount up, you horsemen. Stand with helmets, polish the spears, and put on the armor. Why do I see them afraid, turned back, and their fighters are beaten down? And they have fled in haste, and did not look back, for fear was all around, declares Yahuwah. Do not let the swift flee away, nor the mighty man escape. They shall stumble and fall toward the north by the river Euphrates. Who is this rising like a flood, whose waters surge about like the rivers? Mitzrayim rises like a flood, and its waters surge about like the rivers. And he says, let me rise and cover the earth, and let me destroy the city and its inhabitants. Go up, O horses, and rage, O chariots, and let the mighty men go forth. Cush and Put, who handle the shield, and Lud, who handle and bend the bow. For this is the day of the Master Yahuwah of hosts, a day of vengeance, to avenge himself on his adversaries. And the sword shall devour and be satisfied, and made drunk with their blood. For the Master Yahuwah of hosts has a slaughtering in the land of the north by the river Euphrates. Go up to Gilead, and take balm, O maiden, the daughter of Mitzrayim. In vain you have used many remedies. There is no healing for you. Nations have heard of your shame, and your cry has filled the land. For the mighty has stumbled against the mighty. They have both fallen together. The word which Yahuwah spoke to Yirmiyahu the prophet about the coming of Nebuchadnezzar, sovereign of Babel, to strike the land of Mitzrayim. Declare in Mitzrayim, and let it be heard in Migdol, and let it be heard in Noph and Taphpanes. Say, stand fast and be prepared, for a sword shall devour all around you. Why were your strong ones swept away? They did not stand because Yahuwah drove them away. He made many stumble indeed. They fell over each other and said, arise, let us go back to our own people and to the land of our birth, away from the oppressing sword. There they cried, Pharaoh, sovereign of Mitzrayim, is but a noise. He has let the appointed time pass by. As I live, declare the sovereign, whose name is Yahuwah of hosts. For as Tabor is among the mountains, and as Carmel by the sea, he shall come. O you daughter dwelling in Mitzrayim, prepare yourself to go into exile. For Noph shall become a waste and a ruin, and be burned without inhabitant. Mitzrayim is like a pretty heifer, but destruction comes. It comes from the north. Her hired ones too in her midst are like fatted calves. For they too shall turn. They shall flee away together. They shall not stand, for the day of their calamity has come upon them, the time of their punishment. Its sound moves along like a serpent, for they move on like an army, and come against her with axes like woodcutters. They shall cut down her forest, declares Yahuwah, for it is not searched, because they are more numerous than locusts and without number. The daughter of Mitzrayim shall be put to shame. She shall be given into the hand of the people of the north. Yahuwah of hosts, the Elohim of Yisrael, has said, see, I am bringing punishment on Ammon of No, and on Pharaoh, and on Mitzrayim, and on their mighty ones, and on their sovereigns, and on Pharaoh, and on those trusting in him. And I shall give them into the hand of those who seek their lives, into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, sovereign of Babel, and into the hand of his servants. And afterward it shall be inhabited as in the days of old, declares Yahuwah. But as for you, do not fear, O my servant Jacob, and do not be discouraged, O Yisrael. For look, I am saving you from afar, and your descendants from the land of their captivity. And Jacob shall return, and shall have rest, and be at ease, with no one disturbing. Do not fear, O Jacob, my servant, declares Yahuwah, for I am with you. And though I make a complete end of all the nations to which I have driven you, yet I do not make a complete end of you. But I shall reprove you in right ruling, and by no means leave you unpunished. Chapter 47. The word of Yahuwah that came to Yirmiyahu the prophet concerning the Philistines, before Pharaoh struck Azah. Thus said Yahuwah, See, waters are rising out of the north, and shall be an overflowing flood. And they shall overflow the land and all that is in it, the city and those who dwell within. And men shall cry, and all the inhabitants of the land shall wail, at the noise of the stamping hooves of his strong horses, at the rushing of his chariots, at the rumbling of his wheels. The fathers shall not look to their children, because of weakness of hands, because of the day that shall come to ravage all the Philistines, to cut off from Zor and Zidon every helper that survives, for Yahuwah is ravaging the Philistines. The remnant of the isles of Caphtor, boldness shall come upon Azah. Ashkelon shall be cut off with the remnant of their valley. Till when would you cut yourself, O you sword of Yahuwah? How long till you rest? Put yourself up into your sheath, rest and be still. How shall it rest when Yahuwah has given it a command against Ashkelon and against the seashore? There he has appointed it. Chapter 48. Concerning Moab, this is what Yahuwah of hosts, the Elohim of Israel, said, Woe to Nebo, for it is ravaged. Kiriathaim is put to shame, captured. The high stronghold is put to shame and broken down. There is praise for Moab no longer. In Heshbon they have devised evil against her. Come and let us cut it off as a nation, O madmen. You are also cut off. A sword goes after you. Listen, an outcry from Hornaim, ravaging and great destruction. Moab shall be destroyed. Her little ones shall cry out. For on the ascent to Lucheth they go up weeping bitterly. For in the descent of Hornaim the enemy shall hear a cry of destruction. Flee, deliver your own lives, and be like a bush in the wilderness. For because you have trusted in your works and your treasures, you shall be captured. And Chemosh shall go forth into exile, his priests and his heads together. And a ravager shall come into every city, no one escapes. And the valley shall perish, and the plain be destroyed, as Yahuwah has spoken. Give wings to Moab, for she has to flee away, and her cities become a ruin, with no one to dwell in them. Cursed is he who is slack in doing the work of Yahuwah, and cursed is he who withholds his sword from blood. Moab has been at ease from his youth, and he has settled on his dregs, and has not been emptied from vessel to vessel, nor has he gone into exile. Therefore his flavor has stayed in him, and his fragrance is unchanged. Therefore see, the days are coming, declares Yahuwah, when I shall send him tilters, who shall tilt him over and empty his vessels and break the bottles. And Moab shall be ashamed because of Chemosh, as the house of Yisrael was ashamed of Bethel, their refuge. How do you say, We are mighty and strong men for battle? Moab is ravaged, and her cities have been entered, and her chosen young men have gone down to the slaughter, declares the sovereign, whose name is Yahuwah of hosts. The calamity of Moab is near to come, and his affliction hurries fast. Lament for him, all you who are around him, and all you who know his name. Say how the strong scepter has been broken, the staff of splendor. Come down from your esteem and sit in thirst, O inhabitant daughter of Dibon, for the ravager of Moab shall come against you. He shall destroy your strongholds. Stand by the way and watch, O inhabitants of Aror. Ask him who flees and her who escapes, say, What has been done? Moab has been put to shame, for it has been broken down. Howl and cry. Let it be heard in Arnon that Moab is ravaged. And judgment has come on the plain country, on Cholon, and on Yatzah, and on Mophath, and on Dibon, and Nebo, and on Beth Diblathaim, and on Kiriathaim, and on Beth Gamul, and on Beth Meon, and on Kiriath, and on Botzrah, and on all the cities of the land of Moab, far or near. The horn of Moab has been cut off, and his arm has been broken, declares Yahuwah. Make him drunk, because he has made himself great against Yahuwah. Moab shall splash in his vomit, and he shall also be in mockery. And was not Yisrael a mockery to you? Was he found among thieves? For whenever you spoke of him, you shake your head. O inhabitants of Moab, leave the cities and dwell in the rock, and be like the dove, making a nest in the sides of the cave's mouth. We have heard of the pride of Moab. He is very proud. Of his loftiness and arrogance and pride, and of the haughtiness of his heart. I know his wrath, declares Yahuwah, and his boastings are untrue, and his deeds are false. Therefore I wail for Moab, and I cry out for all Moab. I mourn for the men of Kir Cherez. O vine of Sibmah, I weep for you with the weeping of Yazer. Your branches have passed over the sea. They have come to the sea of Yazer. The ravager has fallen on your summer fruit and your grape harvest. Joy and gladness have been taken away from the orchard and from the land of Moab. And I have made wine to cease from the winepresses. No one treads with shouting. The shouting is no shouting. From the outcry of Heshbon unto Elale, unto Yahatz, they shall raise their voice from Soor to Chonaim, like a 3-year-old heifer, for even the waters of Nimrim are dried up. And I shall make an end in Moab to him who offers in the high places, and burns incense to his mighty ones, declares Yahuwah. So my heart sounds for Moab like flutes, and my heart sounds for the men of Kir Cherez like flutes. Therefore the wealth they made shall be gone. For every head is bald, and every beard clipped, cuts on all the hands, and sackcloth on the loins, on all the housetops of Moab, and in its streets it is all lamentation. For I have broken Moab like a vessel in which no one delights, declares Yahuwah. How has she been broken down? They shall wail. How has Moab turned her back with shame? So Moab shall be a mockery and a horror to all those about her. For thus said Yahuwah, see, he soars like an eagle, and shall spread his wings over Moab. Kirios shall be captured, and the stronghold seized, and the heart of the mighty men in Moab on that day shall be like the heart of a woman in labor. And Moab shall be destroyed as a people, because he has made himself great against Yahuwah. Fear and the pit and the snare are upon you, O inhabitant of Moab, declares Yahuwah. He who flees from the fear falls into the pit, and he who gets out of the pit is caught in the snare. For I am bringing upon Moab the year of their punishment, declares Yahuwah. Those who fled stood powerless under the shadow of Heshbon, but a fire shall come out of Heshbon, and a flame from the midst of Sihon, and consume the brow of Moab, and the crown of the head of the sons of uproar. Woe to you, O Moab! The people of Chemosh have perished, for your sons have been taken into exile, and your daughters into exile. But I shall turn back the captivity of Moab in the latter days, declares Yahuwah. Thus far is the judgment of Moab. Chapter 49. Concerning the Ammonites, thus said Yahuwah, has Yisrael no sons? Has he no heir? Why has Malcham taken possession of Gad, and his people dwell in its cities? Therefore see, the days are coming, declares Yahuwah, when I shall sound a battle cry in Rabbah of the Ammonites, and it shall be a heap of wasteland, and her villages shall be burned with fire. Then Yisrael shall dispossess those who dispossess him, declares Yahuwah. Howl, O Heshbon, for Ai is ravaged. Cry, O daughters of Ramah. Gird on sackcloth. Lament and diligently search by the walls, for Malcham shall go into exile with his priests in his heads. Why do you boast in the valleys? Your flowing valley, O backsliding daughter who is trusting in her treasures, saying, Who would come against me? See, I am bringing fear upon you from all those around you, declares the Master Yahweh of hosts, and you shall be driven out, each one straight ahead, with no one to bring home the wanderer. And after this I turn back the captivity of the children of Ammon, declares Yahuwah, concerning Edom. Thus said Yahuwah of hosts, is there no more wisdom in Timam? Has counsel been lost to those with understanding? Has their wisdom vanished? Flee, turn back in the depths, O inhabitants of Dedan, for I shall bring the calamity of Esau upon him, the time that I shall punish him. If grape gatherers come to you, would they not leave some gleaning of grapes? Even thieves by night would destroy only until they had enough. But as for me, I shall make Esau bare. I shall uncover his hiding places so that he is unable to conceal himself. His seed is ravaged, his brothers and his neighbors, and he is no more. Leave your fatherless children. Let me keep them alive, and let your widows trust in me. For thus said Yahuwah, see, those whose judgment was not to drink of the cup have certainly drunk. And are you the one to go unpunished? You shall not go unpunished, but certainly drink of it. For I have sworn by myself, declares Yahuwah, that Botzrah is to become a ruin and a reproach and a waste and a curse, and all its cities become everlasting wastes. I have heard a report from Yahuwah, and an envoy has been sent to the nations. Gather together, come against her, and rise up to battle. For look, I shall make you small among nations, despised among men. The dread of you, the pride of your heart has deceived you, O you who dwell in the clefts of the rock, holding the height of the hill. Though you make your nest as high as the eagle, from there I bring you down, declares the Master Yahuwah. And Edom shall be a ruin. Everyone who passes by it astonished and whistles at all its plagues. As in the overthrow of Sodom and Amorah and all their neighboring cities, declares Yahuwah. No one shall dwell there, nor would a son of man sojourn in it. See, he comes up like a lion from the Yarden jungle against the home of the strong. But in an instant I shall make him run away from her. And who is the chosen one to appoint over her? For who is like me? And who summons me? And who is that shepherd who stands before me? Therefore hear the counsel of Yahuwah, which he has counseled concerning Edom, and the purposes he has purposed concerning the inhabitants of Teman. The least of the flock shall drag them away. He shall make their pasture a waste before them. The earth shall be shaken at the noise of their fall. There is an outcry. Its noise is heard at the sea of reeds. See, like an eagle, he flies up and spreads his wings over Botzrah. And the heart of the mighty men of Edom in that day shall be like the heart of a woman in her pain. Concerning Damasek, Hamath, and Arphad have been put to shame, for they have heard an evil report. They have been melted in anxiety like the sea, unable to rest. Damasek has become feeble. She has turned to flee, and trembling has taken hold of her. Distress and pain have seized her like a woman in labor. How is the city of praise deserted, the city of my joy? Therefore her young men fall in her streets, and the men of battle are cut off in that day, declares Yahuwah of hosts. And I shall kindle a fire in the wall of Damasek, and it shall consume the palaces of Ben-Hadad, to Kedar and to the reigns of Chatzor, which Nebuchadnezzar, sovereign of Babel, said, Thus said Yahuwah, Arise, go up to Kedar, and ravage the men of the east. Their tents and their flocks, their curtains, and all their vessels shall be taken. And they shall take away their camels for themselves, and they shall cry out to them, Fear is on every side. Flee, go away. Dwell in the depths, O inhabitants of Hatzor, declares Yahuwah. For Nebuchadnezzar, sovereign of Babel, has taken counsel against you, and has devised a plan against you. Arise, go up to the nations at ease that dwell safely, declares Yahuwah. It has no gates or bars, they dwell alone. And their camels shall become plunder, and their large herds booty. And I shall scatter them to all winds, those who cut off the corner, and bring their calamity from all its sides, declares Yahuwah. Hatzor shall be a habitation for jackals, a desert forever. No one dwells there, nor does son of man sojourn in it. The word of Yahuwah that came to Yirmiyahu the prophet concerning Elam, in the beginning of the reign of Zedekiah, the sovereign of Yehudah, saying, Thus said Yahuwah of hosts, See, I am breaking the bow of Elam, the chief of their might. And I shall bring upon Elam the four winds from the four quarters of the heavens, and scatter them toward all those winds. And there shall be no nation where the outcasts of Elam do not go. And I shall break Elam before their enemies, and before those who seek their life. And I shall bring evil upon them, my burning displeasure, declares Yahuwah. And I shall send the sword after them until I have consumed them. And I shall set my throne in Elam, and destroy from there the sovereign and the heads, declares Yahuwah. And it shall be in the latter days that I turn back the captivity of Elam, declares Yahuwah. Chapter 50. The word that Yahuwah spoke concerning Babel, concerning the land of the Kasdim, by Yirmiyahu the prophet. Declare among the nations, and let it be heard, and lift up a banner, let it be heard. Do not conceal it. Say, Babel shall be taken, Bel shall be put to shame, Merodach shall be broken, her images shall be put to shame, her idols shall be broken. For a nation shall come up against her from the north, which shall make her land waste, and none shall dwell in it. They shall flee, they shall go, both man and beast. In those days and at that time, declares Yahuwah, the children of Israel shall come, they and the children of Yehudah together, weeping as they come, and seek Yahuwah their Elohim. They shall ask the way to Zion, their faces toward it. Come and let us join ourselves to Yahuwah in an everlasting covenant, never to be forgotten. My people have been wandering sheep. Their shepherds have led them astray, turning them away on the mountains. They have gone from mountain to hill. They have forgotten their resting place. All who found them have devoured them, and their adversaries have said, We are not guilty, because they have sinned against Yahuwah, the home of righteousness and the expectation of their fathers, Yahuwah. Flee from the midst of Babel, come out of the land of the Kasdim, and be as rams before a flock. For look, I am stirring up and bringing up against Babel an assembly of great nations from a land of the north, and they shall array themselves against her. From there she shall be captured. Their arrows are like those of a mighty skilled man, not returning empty-handed. And Chaldea shall become plunder. All who plunder her shall satisfy themselves, declares Yahuwah. Because you are glad, because you rejoice, you who plunder my inheritance, because you have grown fat like a heifer threshing grain, and you neigh like stallions. Your mother shall be greatly ashamed. She who bore you shall be humiliated. Look, the last of the nations, a wilderness, a dry land and a desert. Because of the wrath of Yahuwah, she shall not be inhabited, but she shall be deserted, all of it. Everyone passing by Babel shall be astonished, and whistle at all her plagues. Set yourselves in array against Babel all around, all you who bend the bow. Shoot at her. Spare no arrows, for she has sinned against Yahuwah. Shout against her all around. She has given her hand. Her foundations have fallen. Her walls are thrown down, for it is the vengeance of Yahuwah. Take vengeance on her. As she has done, so do to her. Cut off the sower from Babel, and him who handles the sickle at harvest time. From before the sword of the oppressor, each one turns to his own people, and each one flees to his own land. Israel is a scattered sheep. The lions have driven him away. First the sovereign of Asher devoured him, and now at last this Nebuchadnezzar, sovereign of Babel, has broken his bones. Therefore thus said Yahuwah of hosts, the Elohim of Israel, See, I am punishing the sovereign of Babel and his land as I have punished the sovereign of Asher, and I shall bring back Israel to his pasture, and he shall feed on Carmel and Bashan, and his being shall be satisfied on Mount Ephraim and Gilead. In those days and at that time, declares Yahuwah, the crookedness of Israel shall be searched for, but there shall be none, and the sin of Yehudah, but none shall be found, for I shall pardon those whom I leave as a remnant. Go up against the land of Merathaim, against it, and against the inhabitants of Pekod. Slay and put them under the ban, declares Yahuwah, and do according to all that I have commanded you. There is a sound of battle in the land, and of great destruction. How the hammer of all the earth has been cut off and broken. How Babel became a ruin among the nations. I have laid a snare for you, and you were captured, O Babel, and you yourself did not know. You have been found and also caught, because you strove against Yahuwah. Yahuwah has opened his armory, and has brought out the weapons of his displeasure. For the Master Elohim of hosts has a work to do in the land of the Kasdim. Come against her from every quarter. Open her storehouses. Pile her up as heaps of ruins, and put her under the ban. Let her have no remnant. Slay all her bulls. Let them go down to the slaughter. Woe to them, for their day has come, the time of their punishment. Listen. Flee and escape from the land of Babel, to declare in Zion the vengeance of Yahuwah our Elohim, the vengeance of his Hekal. Summon archers against Babel, all you who bend the bow. Encamp against it all around, let no one escape. Repay her according to her work. Do to her according to all she has done. For she has been proud against Yahuwah, against the set-apart one of Yisrael. Therefore her young men shall fall in the streets, and all her men of battle shall perish in that day, declares Yahuwah. See, I am against you, O proud one, declares the Master Yahuwah of hosts. For your day has come, the time for your punishment. And the proud one shall stumble, and he shall fall, with no one to raise him up. And I shall kindle a fire in his cities, and it shall devour all around him. Thus said Yahuwah of hosts, the children of Israel were oppressed, along with the children of Yehudah, and all who took them captive have held them fast. They have refused to let them go. Their Redeemer is strong. Yahuwah of hosts is his name. He shall strongly plead their case, so as to give rest to the land, but unrest to the inhabitants of Babel. A sword is upon the Kasdim, declares Yahuwah, and it is upon the inhabitants of Babel, and upon her heads, and upon her wise men. A sword is upon the liars, and they shall be fools. A sword is upon her mighty men, and they shall be broken down. A sword is upon their horses, and upon their chariots, and upon all the mixed people who are in her midst, and they shall become like women. A sword is upon her treasures, and they shall be plundered. A sword is upon her waters, and they shall be dried up, for it is a land of carved images, and they boast about their idols. Therefore the wild desert beast shall dwell with the jackals, and the ostriches dwell in it. And it shall never again be inhabited, nor dwelt in unto all generations. As Elohim overthrew Sodom and Amorah and their neighboring cities, declares Yahuwah, so no one would dwell there, nor would Son of Man sojourn in it. See, a people shall come from the north, and a great nation, and many sovereigns stirred up from the ends of the earth. They strengthen their bow and spear. They are cruel, and they show no compassion. They sound like the roaring sea, and ride on horses set in array, like a man for the battle against you, O daughter of Babel. The sovereign of Babel has heard the report about them, and his hands become weak. Distress has taken hold of him, pain like that of a woman in labor. See, he comes up like a lion from the Yarden's jungle, against the enduring pasture. But in an instant I shall make them run away from her. And who is the chosen one whom I appoint against her? For who is like me? Who summons me? And who is that shepherd who stands before me? Therefore hear the counsel of Yahuwah, which he has counseled concerning Babel, and his purposes he has purposed concerning the land of the Kasdim. The least of the flock shall drag them away. He shall make their pasture a waste before them. At the sound of Babel's capture, the earth shall be shaken, and the outcry shall be heard among the nations. Chapter 51. Thus said Yahuwah, see, I am stirring up the spirit of a destroyer against Babel, against those who dwell in Leb, my opponents. And I shall send strangers to Babel, who shall scatter her and empty her land, for they shall be against her all around in the day of evil. Let the archer draw his bow, and let him stand ready in his armor. Do not spare her young men. Put all her army under the ban. And the slain shall fall in the land of the Kasdim, and the pierced through in her streets. For neither Yisrael nor Yehuda is widowed by his Elohim, Yahuwah of hosts. Though their land has been filled with sin against the set-apart one of Yisrael, flee from the midst of Babel, and let each one save his life. Do not be cut off in her crookedness, for this is the time of the vengeance of Yahuwah, the recompense he is repaying her. Babel was a golden cup in the hand of Yahuwah, making drunk all the earth. The nations drank her wine. That is why the nations went mad. Babel shall suddenly fall and be broken. Howl for her. Take balm for her pain. If so, she might be healed. We would have healed Babel, but she is not healed. Let us leave her each and go to his own land, for her judgment reaches to the heavens and is lifted up to the clouds. Yahuwah has brought forth our righteousness. Come and let us relate in Zion the work of Yahuwah our Elohim. Polish the arrows, put on the shields. Yahuwah has stirred up the spirit of the sovereigns of the Medes. For his plan is against Babel to destroy it, because it is the vengeance of Yahuwah, the vengeance for his Hakal. Lift up a banner on the walls of Babel, strengthen the watch, station the watchmen, prepare the ambush. For Yahuwah has both planned and done what he spoke concerning the inhabitants of Babel. You who dwell upon many waters, great in treasures, your end has come, the measure of your greedy gain. Yahuwah of hosts has sworn by himself, I shall certainly fill you with men as with locusts, and they shall lift up a shout against you. He made the earth by his power. He established the world by his wisdom, and stretched out the heavens by his understanding. When he gives forth his voice, the waters in the heavens roar, and he makes vapors to ascend from the ends of the earth. He makes lightnings for the rain, and he brings the winds out of his treasuries. All mankind has become too brutish to know. Every smith has been put to shame by the carved image. For his molded image is falsehood, and there is no breath in them. They are worthless, a work of mockery. In the time of their punishment they perish. The portion of Jacob is not like them, for he is the maker of all, and Yisrael is the tribe of his inheritance. Yahuwah of hosts is his name. You are my battle axe, the weapons of battle. And with you I shall break nations in pieces, and with you I shall destroy reigns. And with you I shall break in pieces the horse and its rider. And with you I shall break in pieces the chariot and its rider. And with you I shall break in pieces man and woman. And with you I shall break in pieces old and young. And with you I shall break in pieces the young man and the maiden. And with you I shall break in pieces the shepherd and his flock. And with you I shall break in pieces the farmer and his yoke of oxen. And with you I shall break in pieces governors and rulers. And I shall repay Babel and all the inhabitants of Chaldea for all the evil they have done in Zion before your eyes, declares Yahuwah. See, I am against you, O destroying mountain, who destroys all the earth, declares Yahuwah. And I shall stretch out my hand against you, and I shall roll you down from the rocks, and make you a burnt mountain. And they shall not take from you a stone for a corner, nor a stone for a foundation, but you shall be a waste forever, declares Yahuwah. Lift up a banner in the land, blow a shofar among the nations, prepare the nations against her, call the reigns together against her, Ararat, Mini, Ashkenaz, appoint a commander against her, bring up horses like hairy locusts, separate the nations against her with the sovereigns of the Medes, its governors and all its rulers, all the land of his rule, so that the land shakes and writhes in pain. For every plan of Yahuwah shall be established against Babel, to make the land of Babel a ruin, without inhabitant. The mighty men of Babel have ceased to fight. They remained in their strongholds. Their might has failed. They became like women. They have burned her dwelling places. The bars of her gate have been broken. One runner runs to meet another, and one reporter to meet another, to report to the sovereign of Babel that his city is taken on all sides, and the fords have been captured, and they have burned the reeds with fire, and the soldiers are startled. For thus said Yahweh of hosts, the Elohim of Israel, the daughter of Babel is like a threshing floor at the time it is trodden. Yet a little while, and the time of her harvest shall come. Nebuchadnezzar, the sovereign of Babel, has devoured us. He has crushed us. He has made us an empty vessel. He has swallowed us up like a monster. He has filled his stomach with my delicacies. He has driven us away. Let the violence done to me and my flesh be upon Babel, says the inhabitant of Zion, and let my blood be upon the inhabitants of Chaldea, says Jerusalem. Therefore thus said Yahuwah, see, I am pleading your case, and I shall take vengeance for you and dry up her sea and make her fountain dry. And Babel shall become a heap, a habitation of jackals, an astonishment, and a hissing without inhabitant. Together they roar like lions, they shall growl like lions' cubs. In their heat I prepare their feasts, and I shall make them drunk so that they rejoice and sleep a never-ending sleep and not awake, declares Yahuwah. I shall bring them down like lambs to the slaughter, like rams with male goats. Oh, how Shishak has been captured, the praise of all the earth been seized. How Babel has become a ruin among the nations. The sea has risen over Babel. She has been covered with the roaring of its waves. Her cities have become a ruin, a dry land and a desert, a land where no one dwells. Neither does Son of Man pass by it. And I shall punish Bel in Babel, and I shall make him spew out what he has swallowed, and nations shall no longer stream to him. Even the wall of Babel shall fall. Come out of her midst, my people, and let everyone deliver his being from the burning displeasure of Yahuwah, unless your heart grow faint, and you fear the report heard in the land. For a report shall come 1 year, and after that in another year a report shall come, and violence in the land, ruler against ruler. Therefore see, the days are coming that I shall bring punishment on the carved images of Babel, and all her land shall be put to shame, and all her slain fall in her midst. And the heavens and the earth and all that is in them shall shout for joy over Babel, for the ravagers shall come to her from the north, declares Yahuwah. As Babel is to fall for the slain of Israel, so for Babel the slain of all the earth shall fall. You who have escaped the sword, go away. Do not stand still. Remember Yahuwah from afar, and let Jerusalem come to your heart. We are ashamed because we have heard reproach. Shame has covered our faces, for strangers have come into the set-apart places of Yahuwah. Therefore see, the days are coming, declares Yahuwah, that I shall bring punishment on her carved images, while the wounded groan throughout all her land. Though Babel should mount up to the heavens, and though she should make the height of her strength inaccessible, ravagers shall come to her from me, declares Yahuwah. Listen, O cry from Babel, and great destruction from the land of the Kasdim, because Yahuwah is ravaging Babel, and shall silence her loud voice, and her waves shall roar like great waters. The noise of their voice shall resound, because the ravager shall come against her, against Babel, and her mighty men shall be captured. Every one of their bows shall be broken, for Yahuwah is the El of recompense. He shall certainly repay. And I shall make her rulers drunk, and her wise men, her governors, and her deputies, and her mighty men. And they shall sleep a lasting sleep, and not awake, declares the sovereign, whose name is Yahuwah of hosts. Thus said Yahuwah of hosts, the broad walls of Babel are completely demolished, and her high gates are burned with fire. And peoples labor in vain, and the nations weary themselves for fire. The word that Yirmiyahu the prophet commanded Sariah, son of Neriah, son of Maaseiah, when he went with Zedekiah the sovereign of Yehudah to Babel in the 4th year of his reign. And Sariah was a quartermaster. So Yirmiyahu wrote in a book all the evil that would come upon Babel, all these words which had been written concerning Babel. And Yirmiyahu said to Sariah, when you come to Babel and see it, and read all these words, then you shall say, O Yahuwah, you have spoken concerning this place to cut it off, so that none shall dwell in it, neither man nor beast, for it is a ruin forever. And it shall be, when you have ended reading this book, that you shall tie a stone to it, and throw it into the midst of the Euphrates, and shall say, so does Babel sink and not rise from the evil that I am bringing upon her, and they shall weary themselves. Thus far are the words of Yirmiyahu. Chapter 52. Zedekiyahu was 21 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Hamutal, the daughter of Yirmiyahu of Libnah. And he did evil in the eyes of Yahuwah according to all that Jehoiakim had done. For through the displeasure of Yahuwah this came to be against Jerusalem and Yehudah, until he had cast them out from his presence. And Zedekiyahu rebelled against the sovereign of Babel. And it came to be in the 9th year of his reign, on the 10th of the new moon, that Nebuchadnezzar, sovereign of Babel, and all his army came against Jerusalem, and encamped against it. And they built a siege wall against it all around. And the city was under siege until the 11th year of sovereign Zedekiyahu. On the 9th of the 4th new moon, the scarcity of food was so severe in the city that there was no food for the people of the land. Then the city wall was breached, and all the men of the battle fled and went out of the city at night by way of the gate between the two walls, which was by the sovereign's garden, while the Kasdim were near the city all around, and they went by the way of the desert plain. But the army of the Kasdim pursued the sovereign, and they overtook Zedekiyahu in the desert plains of Jericho, and his entire army was scattered from him. Then they captured the sovereign and brought him up to the sovereign of Babel at Riblah, in the land of Hamath, and he pronounced judgments on him. And the sovereign of Babel slew the sons of Zedekiyahu before his eyes, and he also slew all the heads of Yehudah in Riblah. And he put out the eyes of Zedekiyahu, and the sovereign of Babel bound him in bronze shackles and took him to Babel, and put him in prison till the day of his death. And on the 10th of the 5th new moon, which was the 19th year of sovereign Nebuchadnezzar, sovereign of Babel, Nebuzaradan, chief of the guard, who served the sovereign of Babel, came to Jerusalem, and he burned the house of Yahuwah, and the sovereign's house, and all the houses of Jerusalem, and all the houses of the great men he burned with fire. And all the army of the Kasdim who were with the chief of the guard broke down all the walls of Jerusalem all around. And Nebuzaradan, chief of the guard, exiled some of the poor people, and the rest of the people who were left in the city, and the defectors who had gone over to the sovereign of Babel, and the rest of the craftsmen. But Nebuzaradan, chief of the guard, left some of the poor of the land as vine dressers and farmers. And the Kasdim broke the bronze columns that were in the house of Yahuwah, and the stands and the bronze sea that were in the house of Yahuwah, and brought all their bronze to Babel. They also took away the pots, and the shovels, and the snuffers, and the bowls, and the ladles, and all the bronze utensils with which they served, and the basins, and the fire holders, and the bowls, and the pots, and the lampstands, and the ladles, and the cups, whatever was of solid gold, and whatever was of solid silver, the chief of the guard took. The 2 columns, one sea, the 12 bronze bowls which were under it, and the stands which sovereign Shelemah had made for the house of Yahuwah. The bronze of all the vessels was beyond weighing. As for the columns, the height of one column was 18 cubits, and its circumference was 12 cubits, and its thickness was 4 fingers hollow. And a capital of bronze was on it, and the height of one capital was 5 cubits, with a network and pomegranates all around the capital, all of bronze. And the second column with pomegranates was the same. And there were 96 pomegranates on the sides. All the pomegranates on the network were 100 all around. And the chief of the guard took Sariah, the chief priest, and Zephaniah, the second priest, and the 3 doorkeepers. And from the city he took 1 eunuch who was in charge of the men of battle, and 7 men who saw the sovereign's face, who were found in the city, and the scribe of the commander of the army, who mustered the people of the land, and 60 men of the people of the land who were found in the city. And Nebuzaradan, chief of the guard, took these, and brought them to the sovereign of Babel at Riblah. And the sovereign of Babel struck them, and put them to death at Riblah in the land of Hamath. Thus Yehudah was exiled from its own land. These are the people whom Nebuchadnezzar exiled in the 7th year, 3,023 Yahudim. In the 18th year of Nebuchadnezzar, he exiled from Jerusalem 832 beings. In the 23rd year of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuzaradan, chief of the guard, exiled of the Yahudim 745 beings. All the beings were 4,600. And it came to be in the 37th year of the exile of Jehoiakim, sovereign of Yehuda, in the 12th new moon, on the 25th of the new moon, that Evil-Merodach, sovereign of Babel, in the first year of his reign, lifted up the head of Jehoiakim, sovereign of Yehuda, and brought him out of prison. And he spoke kindly to him, and set his throne above those of the sovereigns who were with him in Babel. So he changed his prison garments, and he ate bread continually before the sovereign all the days of his life. And as for his allowance, there was a continual allowance given him by the sovereign of Babel, a portion for each day, until the day of his death, all the days of his life.